Good morning, Vesta. Good morning, Linda. Thank you for being here. Let me know if you can hear me okay. I'm just making some adjustments. I may want to adjust my lighting just a little bit. I'm not sure. I noticed when I did some other things with some demonstrators, it was very dark here in my little corner of my craft room. So I've brought in another light. I just don't want to wash everything out. So if you see me kind of looking over this way, I'm like trying to determine, should I turn that light down a little bit or not? So what I want to say is I am so excited because I've got new glasses, a new prescription, and you guys, I can see your comments sitting like this far away from my computer. I don't feel like I have to tilt my head up to find my bifocal like I did in my other glasses. So these lenses I got have a wide field of vision, and it really works, and I'm so excited because before I was having to like tilt my head, try to find the bifocal, and here I'm just looking right at my computer, and I can even see your comments coming up on my phone. They're a little harder to read, but I mean, I'm excited. Why did I wait so long? Okay, good morning, Kathy and Ellen and Ruby. Hi, Diane. So, lights are reflecting on your right lens with the turn. Okay, let's see. Let me do this. Maybe this is better. Maybe I didn't need it quite as bright. We'll see. Let's see if that does anything when I see what happens on the computer. I think that's better. Okay, so thank you for being with me. A few things before we get started. I posted this morning, there's a new Google form for the barn quilts for 2026. Now, if you want to keep things the way that you've been doing them, then you don't have to fill that out and send it back to me. But I've given you some other payment options as far as like, instead of getting an invoice every month like you do now. In 2026, we're going to do the barn quilts every other month. So you can go ahead and pay for 3 months or the 6 months, the year in full if you want to. And then I keep track of when... I keep track of your information so that I know that you don't miss a kit or a PDF. And there's another, if you want to pay by check, because I know there's a lot of people who have had problems with these third-party payment places, so there is that option. So if there's anything new when you read that form that you want to do, then please fill it out and send it back to me. And then, so at the end of this month will be our last barn quilt kit together for 2025. And then we'll resume again in January of 2026, every other month. So, let's see, what else do I want to say? I think that might be it for right now. I'm going to turn the camera around and we're going to get started with today's mystery quilt card. Okay, so while I am rearranging some things on my workspace, please say good morning to each other. I love it when I see your conversations that you all have. We have quite the little community, and I just love that. So I need to kind of push some things back. This down. Let's make this a little bigger. There we go. And I'm going to shed some light down on the workspace. Hi, Karen. Okay. I think we're a little lopsided, though. There we go. Well, let's see what that looks like on the laptop. So I'm going to need your help with maybe a name for this block. I started looking at one block and then started seeing that there was some other variations, and before I knew it, I had a hodgepodge of different elements that I liked. And so I may need your help in, like, what should we call this block? So when we're all done and you see it, then maybe you can help me with that. Hey, Tony. Oh, how did that surgery go? Tony had some hand surgery yesterday. Hi, Sharon. Hi, Ann. Okay, so I want to show you this book that was gifted to me by a follower. Carrie had sent me this book a year ago, maybe a little bit more. And if you enjoy quilt cards as much as I think you do, you may want to find this one. It's 5,500 quilt block designs. Now, I have this book, and I have the Encyclopedia of Pieced Quilt Patterns. I have this one, and I have the one underneath it. Both are just full of quilt patterns. And I have found, when I had what's in my mind's eye, I didn't find it in this book. I did not find the pattern in this one, but I did find something that got me started in this one. And the block that intrigued me actually stems from this one right here, number 122. It's called Boxes. So if you just see this purple and brown square at the top, let me zoom in so you can really see it. And let's move that up. Nope, we got to move it down. There we go. So it's this one right here. Now, when I was looking at it, I was looking at these four corners. I was looking at these four corners here, and it reminded me of, you know, the bows that you can buy to put on top of a present. Well, that's what my mind's eye saw, was this bow. And I tried different things to make it look like a bow, and they didn't pan out. But if you notice here, in this block, they have these rectangles that leave a lot of opportunity to do something with. And I liked that we have this star on the outside. So this is kind of like an Ohio star, if you can envision that. And so I'm like, okay, I want to play with these rectangles and maybe do something a little different in the center. So keep that in mind when you see the finished square. Okay? That this was my inspiration, and really not this block itself. Remember, I had that present bow in my mind's eye, and I was just looking for something that kind of resembled it. So when I was going through this book, I thought, okay, this resembles it, but it's leaving me a lot of opportunity to turn it into something else. Okay? So we're going to kind of stem from this, but it's not going to be this. Okay? So if you want a really good quilt pattern book, try to find this one. It was gifted to me. It's funny that she says, enjoy. Don't become overwhelmed by the sheer numbers of possibilities. Figure out how to use this book and smile. So Carrie, thank you so much. You don't know how much that this book has come in handy when I'm trying to come up with something. It's kind of, you know, it's my go-to. So hi Sharon and Lori. Hi Julie. Oh, it's okay, Julie. We're chatting right now, so you are not late. Okay? Let's go over the prep that I had you get ready for today. And you had a little bit of homework. So, for our card base, it's going to be 4 1/4 by 11. We'll do some scoring here in a little bit. I have a layer that is 4 inches square. This can be designer series paper. It can be cardstock, whatever you want. And then here's a 1 by 4. So we're going to do the bookbinding fold, and I'll give you the scoring dimensions on our card base here in a minute. But the card is going to be the bookbinding fold. It's one of my favorite, it's one of my favorite folds that displays a quilt block really, really nicely. And the fact that we can go up to a 4-inch block, I really like, because we can size our quilt block up to 4 inches. We can size it smaller, and it gives us room for layers underneath. But the bookbinding fold is just a really beautiful way to showcase a quilt block. If you have a favorite fold that showcases your quilt blocks, please mention it in the comments. And I look like my desk is going to fall down in my lap. So let me see if I made it worse or I made it better when I adjusted the camera. It's a little bit better. Okay. And let's set that aside. Now for the quilt block prep, let's do our print. So I have a 3-inch square of a beautiful print from the Elegant Pine Snowflakes. It's got that secret sea background, and we've got all these, we got shaded spruce, and we've got old olive, cherry cobbler. We got some beautiful colors that just pop off of that secret sea. And what I did was I took 2 colors from this print here as my other 2 colors for the quilt block. So I'm going to be working with old olive, and I'm going to be working with a red from the Traditions of Christmas. It's like, it's more cherry cobbler, but it could be red. Depends on what you put it like next to. So that is a 3-inch square. Your homework was to draw a 1-inch line on all 4 sides. So I just drew a line at 1 inch, and then I just kept turning my block and drawing it again. And then in the end, it's going to leave you with a 9-patch quilt grid. Okay, 9 squares that are equal size. Okay, so that's our print. And then now I did the homework, some of the homework we're going to cut together, but this is the red that I was telling you about from the Traditions of Christmas. It's actually got 2 different colors in there, but that's where I pulled my red from, because in the Elegant Pine Snowflake Designer Series paper, there is no red. So, and these are going to be holiday cards, so I needed a red. So that's where those, that's where that red came from. And then in the Elegant Pine, there's a B side to the paper that's like, it looks like frost, and it's variegated. You go from really dark old olive to really light old olive. So I cut my 2, these are 1-inch squares, by the way. So there's the 1-inch squares. We got the red. Here we've got our greens. And then, now I did a switcheroo on you guys, but in the prep, this here was Old Olive. I think I'm going to try this color to bring in more color. We'll see how it goes. But, so from that variegated, you needed the 2 1-inch squares. You needed an 11/16, which I switched out for, gosh, I don't know if this is, I don't think that's shaded spruce. I'm not sure what color I would call that. It's almost like Summer Splash, but it's not Summer Splash. Kind of maybe Coastal Cabana. I'm not sure. But in the prep, it's Old Olive. So we got those. And then for our neutrals, I want to introduce you to this. It's called Whispers of Texture. And you get 3 sheets of 2 designs. Now here, this looks like a very fine corrugated texture. And then the other one is, I kind of look at them as like little diamonds. But if you want a shortcut to the embossing or the quilting of your cards, maybe you want a layer to look like it's quilted in a different pattern than what you're going to quilt your quilt block. Look at these, take a look at this paper, and these would make really nice backgrounds that just bring in another element. It's not like you have the same all over quilting. You can separate it. Okay, so I'm using on this, the layer that's 3 3/4 inches square, I'm using that really fine corrugated look. Okay, so that's a layer. And then for the pieces that I'm going to use in my quilt block, I'm actually using the other pattern, which I don't know, diamonds, a basket weave type look to it. But I had the 4 11/16 inch squares, and then I have these 4 1/2-inch squares. Okay, so take a look at that, because I'm going to show you. I'm not going to use an embossing folder. I want to show you how that works out, just using the textured white. Yeah, kind of like linen, Linda. Yeah, it's so pretty. All right, let's just kind of put this in a pile here. Now, I do want to tell you that when it comes to putting our card together, you may or may not want this 4-inch square. I'm going to show you in my cards how I did a card without it, and I did a card with it, and I have to tell you, I love both. So this is optional. So on our card base, on the 11-inch side, I scored it in half at 5.5. And then I moved it over to the right, and I scored again at 4 1/4. So it gives you this spine right here. I don't know if it's showing up in the on the computer, but you'll see it as soon as we do our fold. So fold your card base in half. Burnish that 5.5-inch score line with your bone folder. And then have it in front of you like you're opening a book. And fold this top part back on that other fold, that other score line. That creates your book binding. Okay. And we can go ahead, and I am going to glue that binding shut. Now, if you're wanting to run some ribbon around, and have ribbon come on this side, don't glue this down until you're all done with whatever layers that you're doing. Okay, so there's our bookbinding fun fold. Again, this 4-inch square, that is optional. I would not glue that down just yet. And I don't know if I would go ahead and glue my 1-inch by 4-inch piece down yet either, because when you put your quilt block together, you might want to switch some things out. So keep that in mind. I'm just going to lay those 2 pieces there, and I'm going to set that to the side. Let's get to work on our quilt block. So bring in that 3-inch square. That is your print. Hi, Myrtle. How are you? Hi, Janice and Ginger. Okay, so I think it's time to zoom in again so we can really see what we're doing here. Hi, Tina. Okay. Take your 4 1/2-inch squares of your neutral. Keep in mind that block that I showed you from the book. These 4 corners, or these these 4 1/2-inch squares, your 1st, your 3rd, your 7th, and your 9th square. Those 1/2-inch squares are going to sit right down here in the corners, up here in the corners on the bottom. Okay, I always like to do a dry run first. Why? It's just habit. But I think it helps me have a visual to remember what I'm going to be doing. So they're going to sit like that. And I'm not going to, I'm going to glue them very close to the line. You may find that when we get to putting the bars, or the flying geese units in, that you may have to overlap these squares just a bit. But if you glue them down just a sliver to the side of your pencil line, then your flying geese may just slip right in. We always, we just do what we have to do. I am going to bring in my OmniGrid ruler. This is a must in my quilt card crafting because of these lines. Okay, so you have your 1/8, your 1/4, your 3/8, your 1/2, 5/8, 3/4, 7/8, and it's 1 inch wide. These black lines are 16ths, so that's you got 3/16, and then you go to your 3/8, but they even give you 3/16 on the ruler. And because the ruler is clear and this down the center is my 1/2 inch, it will help me make sure that my squares here are a 1/2 inch, because I'm going to line the edge of my paper up with my 1/2 inch line when I go to check myself, and I just want to try and stay straight. So the first thing, I'm going to put this one down that's in the upper right corner. And I would suggest that you don't, hold on here. I would suggest that you don't press these down really firm just yet, so that you have some wiggle room. Pick up your piece if you have to. And I'm looking just to see a little bit of that pencil line. Okay. Now I'm going to put the one down right below it. I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to butt up the ruler to the side of these white squares. And I just want to make sure that I have a 1/2 inch on that side of it. So it really helps just kind of keep me straight. Okay, so that's the purpose of the ruler. Now I'm going to turn my block counterclockwise 1 time. And I'm going to come down here to that same lower right-hand corner. I'm going to put that up there, use my ruler. And once I know that I have my 1/2 inch, then I'm going to press that square down. And then we'll do it one more time. This is going to help me line up my flying geese units. Doesn't have to be perfect, but I need to be in the ballpark. Now I'll put that one down. I'm going to turn this. I am going to measure again. These rulers online are really inexpensive, so if you can pick yourself up one, they're a lot of help. And if you're a quilter and a card maker, you get to use them in both of your hobbies. Okay, so there is the 4 corners. That's another name for this block. I found that it's called boxes. It's called 4 corners. It could have other names for all I know. So we have that. Let's put this out of the way. There's our homework was to put those 11/16 inch white squares on point on top of the 1 inch squares. And you want to make sure that these squares that are on point are centered. So on a piece of grid paper, every square is 1/4 of an inch. So what you want to make sure is that you either put a tick mark on your 1 inch square at a 1/2 inch on each side, or just lay your 1 inch square down and adhere your white square, but make sure that the points are hitting on the 1/2 inch, because we need to cut these in half, and we want to make sure that we're getting this white all the way outside to the edge. Sometimes, you know, it's not perfect, but we want to try to be really close. Okay, so you're going to put your square in your cutter square, but I'm going to find the 1/2 inch, and I just want to make sure that my points are landing in that cutting track. Let's see if you guys can see that pretty good. Okay, and then I'm going to gently close that guard. And now I have created some flying geese units. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to cut all of these in half. You may be used to cutting things in half diagonally. We are not doing that. These squares are going in as squares and coming out as flying geese units. I thought it was easier to do these this way than to have you cut a whole bunch of little triangles and make things fit. So what I'm focusing on when I'm coming up with like cutting instructions is like, how can we create one unit so that we can handle bigger pieces and then cut them down, and it takes some of the work out. Okay, so I want to be careful with this one. And there we have our flying geese. And that's what we're going to work on next. Now bring your square back in. Now what you need to decide, we're going to work and we're going to bridge the gap between our two white squares. You need to decide if bridging that gap is going to be green or red, or which of the two colors you're working with. I did do some cards that I want to show you afterwards that I used the Brushed in Beauty designer series paper and made some cards that aren't holiday. So I can't wait to show you those. So I am just going to go with using red first. And my units in between my squares, you want to make sure that that white half square triangle, that the point is a valley, okay? And I am going to turn mine so that when I glue it down, I can visually keep this a straight line. Sometimes it's hard for me to have that visual straight line when I'm looking at it horizontally, but if I turn it vertically, I can see better. Okay, so it fits right down in there, and so I am going to adhere this. Now, if your flying geese is a little long, then what I would do is I would catch a little bit of your 1-inch squares and just lay it right on top. It'll all work out. It shouldn't be that far off, but sometimes they'll lay in there really nice, and sometimes you have to make them fit in there, especially if they're a little long. Okay, so there we go with that. I'm going to keep just turning my block, and I'm going to do this dry run first. Here, this could snap in with a little work, but if you can see, it's overlapping that white just a little bit, so I'm going to make sure that I catch it evenly. I don't want it to be like fit in on one end and overhang on the other. So I am just going to try to even it out. Now, I'm not going to use an embossing folder, remember, but I am going to use my plates so that I can run this block through and get some of my edges to lay down. And that will help take care of this little overlap that I have. It'll help smooth that out. So let's just keep going. Keep in mind, we're trying to name this quilt block. So, as you can see, we're creating a star in the middle. So maybe that'll have something to do with it, but I don't know how we tie in the inspiration with boxes. I don't know. I'm really stumped, you guys. I need your help because I'm not sure which way I should go with, what do we call this block? It's like a mishmash of a couple different ones. So there's that one, and then one more. That's going to fit in there really nice. That's why not putting those 4 half-inch squares that we started out with right on the line, we kind of gave it like a hair to the one side, was to be able to, hopefully, these flying geese would just lock right in there. This one's overhanging just a smidge. So I'm going to make sure it catches both ends. I need to move it over a little bit. Remember, I want as straight of a line as I can get. It's not always going to be perfect, but it shouldn't be so out of whack that it's really, really noticeable. Okay? So there's the first part of our block. Whoops. I tried bringing that corner down and I moved it the other way. So now what we're going to do is your other flying geese units are going to sit on top of the ones that you just did before. Remember when I showed you the original pattern, these are the rectangles here that were plain, and I thought I really could do something, I wanted to do something with these rectangles right here because it was just too plain. Well, that's what I did with them. Here's your flying geese units that are part of the boxes block. Remember, they were sitting here on the outside and it looked like an Ohio star. So we want to put these right on top. Now, I like to do a dry run because depending on my cutting, I may be a little wider or a little narrower. And I want this side, the long side of that flying geese unit, to be flush with the side of my 3-inch square. See where this one here is a little wider? Well, maybe one of my other sides is a little wider. And it seems to fit really good right there. So don't glue anything down until you've played with where do things work best. I think this one just might work a little better up here. And if you have to, just like we did with that first flying geese unit, I want to make sure that this is flush. And you might say, well, if it hangs over, just cut it off. Well, depending on how far it's hanging over, you could lose your points. I've already lost a little bit in this point here because my square, when it was on point, wasn't all the way to the edge. It wasn't evened out. You're going to take off even more than that if you think you can just chop it off. So if you have to, I would line it up with the outside edge. And if it catches this right here, so be it. We'll lay it down when we run it through the rollers, okay? So it's very important. And ask me how I know. I thought, well, I'll just cut it off and square it up. Well, I lost those points in those two corners. And the card still worked, but, I mean, I could have done better. And now I've lost where my pieces are working. That one seemed to work there. That one works there. Whoops. And we'll make that one work right there. Okay. So now I've got a double star. I started out looking at boxes. So it's like, what in the world, you guys, do we call this quilt block? It's going to be nameless until we figure it out together. I could have gone to ChatGPT and given it all the information, but I thought it would be more fun if we figured it out together instead of the computer. Okay, let's turn it again. Just make sure that your flying geese unit, that the valley is pointing inward. And I want to go all the way to the outside edge here. I got one more to go, so I know where he's going to go. I'm going to bring this to me so that I can do a little better. Okay, and then the last one. It's going to go right here. Okay. Now, at any time, you could stop. You could freeze your quilt block and not go any further, and you would have a quilt block. Okay, but we're going to do a few more steps because every time I saw a place that I could put either a half square triangle or something, and I would keep thinking in my head what my favorite star blocks look like, I kept adding. But just keep in mind that you can stop or freeze this block at any step. Okay? In fact, we could get at least 4 blocks out of just this one, depending on where we stop. Okay? So we've got this. Now what I want to bring in, where did I do with all my pieces? Remember that 11/16 inch square? Originally in the prep, this was the same color as the green from the old olive variegated B-side of that designer series paper. And I chose to bring a light and a dark shade of the old olive in to give it, just to bring in more color, to bring in more interest. But I'm wondering, I think I'm going to change this out to this, I think they're going with shaded spruce, but to me it looks like between Summer Splash and Coastal Cabana. But you can see that it's the color right here so it is shaded spruce, but to me it just says something different. I'm going to go ahead and put that on point, and notice that my points I'm going to try to keep with the points that are in the star, and I am going to put that down. So here, just by doing this step right here, we have created another version of the quilt block. Okay, so I'm pulling another color in, which I'm so glad that I did, instead of keeping with all the old olives. But this is where you have to play. Now, I still wanted to do something different. And one of my favorite star patterns is where we put 4 little squares in these valleys to make it look like we've got a square on point sitting behind the star. And so these are going to get adhered right on top of the valley of our neutral. And it's going to give us the illusion that that star is sitting on top of a square behind it. Now, you don't have to put these in. If this is too little for you to work with, you don't have to put them in. You can stop. But I don't know when to stop, you guys. It's like when I'm card making, I don't know when less is more. So I keep going. I'm going to put them in, okay? Because it's what the photos for the PDF show, which there is a PDF in the works. I want to take some more pictures because last night at the last minute, I created some cards with the Brushed with Beauty designer series paper, and I want to get those pictures in the PDF so that you can visualize this quilt block in a non-holiday way, okay? So I just put a little tiny line of glue using my Take Your Pick tool. This helps with picking up those small pieces, setting them in place. Make sure it's in there really nice and flush. Use your fingernail or something to wipe away if any of the glue comes out from underneath. And remember, these squares are going on the inside star, not the outside. You could, if you guys want to get really fancy, put another square on the outside. I would make it a different color so that you're bringing more of the colors that are in your pattern. But here you could step it up one more time and put give it another look. I would just choose another color. Okay, endless possibilities with quilt blocks. One little design change can just, oh my god, it just morphs into more and more and more. I think that's why I like it so much, and that's why I liked quilting to begin with. Just because of the possibilities of your designs. Okay? So when you're feeling your quilt block, you feel all these layers, right? I love that. It gives me a 2D feel. But I want to lay some of these layers down a bit. However, I don't want to take away from using that textured neutral paper, because remember, that was to be my shortcut to quilting or embossing this block. So if you've got a machine that is really, really tight, try to find a sandwich that doesn't wipe out your texture. I found that I can use the same sandwich as I'm die cutting. My rollers aren't super tight in my stamp and my cut and emboss machine. I've heard people say that they're some rollers are really, really tight. Mine aren't. They're not loosey, but they're not super tight either. So I found that I could go with the sandwich like I'm die cutting, which is the 1, the 2, a 3. Now I'm going to turn my block over. I don't want all of these scratches and stuff to mar up my quilt block. So I'm going to put a piece of paper down to protect that white. Plus, I don't want to pick up, look at all the different like colors and stuff in here. I don't want that to get on my white. So I'm going to protect it by putting a piece of paper down. And then I'll put my other one on top. And then I'm going to run this through. So I'll be right back. Don't ask me why, but I noticed that it didn't wipe out the texture as much when I turned the block upside down as I did when I put it faced up. So let's take a look. We lost a little bit in the triangles, but whatever layer is your highest, you're going to expect to lose a little bit because the rollers are hitting the highest layer. Any layer that sits below that can be pretty free and clear of, you know, the pressure not taking out the texture. So if I turn it like this, you can still see that I've got it there. So part of the fun of this paper is you don't have to have an embossing folder. So there's our quilt block, okay? And it laid down some of those layers, which made me very happy. And now, if we bring in that 3 3/4 inch square. Now, I did the opposite texture. And when we get to it, our block is going to sit right on this square. Now, notice when we used the same color background as our triangles, now you really see that kind of a loop, maybe like a figure 8. You can really see this loop that's in the corners, which was I had that mind's eye of a bow present. And here, you know how in the middle of your loops you have that center of the bow? And you guys, I can be totally overthinking this and just wishful thinking it's going to morph into something, you know, but this is just my process. This is how Julie works, okay? But that same color background now shows my movement in the quilt block. Where if this was a darker background, you may not notice the movement and the loops like you did if it's on the same color as your triangles. Okay, so we got that. Now let's bring in our card base. And remember, don't glue anything down until you know what you like. So here's that Secret C Designer Series paper. I'm just going to lay it down there. Here would be that layer. And then you've got this layer here. Okay. Now, I don't know. Ooh, I could use the... See, I was trying to bring in another green. I don't like this green at all with these greens, but I just brought in our print over here, and this gives it a very rich, elegant look. So I'm going to go with this, okay? So I'm going to take all these off. One thing before you glue your quilt block down, turn it over. If you have anything hanging off the sides that you just cannot accept, I've got some hanging out right there. I don't think it's going to make or break my card, so I'm not going to think about it anymore, because shaving off that fine of a piece could just lead me down to disfiguring the block altogether. Because when you take off of one side, and to keep it square, you have to take off on that other corner side. So just know what you're getting into. You could start out with that 3-inch block and end up with, I don't know, depending on how much you keep taking off, it could be quite smaller. So there's that. Be careful when you put the glue down. Make sure you know which ribbed or corrugated side. There's a really smooth side, and then you have your texture. And I like this little bit of a border, especially now that I'm using this side of that 1x4, because it really brings in the Secret C background, that color. This is going to look really rich. Nope, I want to go this way. And this piece right here goes right on that spine. This is a this is a classic fun fold. Now, you could even put another layer behind this if you wanted to, but remember that white background is what's giving me shows me movement. So if I keep layering this, I may lose what I set out to achieve. Okay, you could pop this up on dimensionals. I'm going to glue it right to that layer. This 3-inch square will fit point to point. It might get into your fold a little bit, but play around with on point. Maybe you know, I don't know. This is up to you. It's your block. I'm just going to go with the original plan here. I just like to give you as many options as possible. I want your wheels to really start spinning here. And then let's just eyeball this, make sure we got a nice even border. That doesn't look too bad. Look at that beautiful holiday quilt block. And this is a block, remember, this is a block that will do all the work for you. It's picking out your colors. That really, the contrast is going to change things. So here you have your, like, these boxes here. They're really like coming out of the corners. But I also, in my mind's eye, I can visualize my loops. Okay, for that bow present that I wanted. So, as far as embellishing, let me show you the other cards that I did. I used the Sparkling Sequins. I think these are back ordered right now. But these are the embellishments that I used on the cards that I'm going to show you. But let me show you my other samples. And then I want to show you the cards I made with the Brushed with Beauty. Okay, so here is a card. Let me find that other one that was supposed to go with that one. No, I'll just show you these individually. So here's one where that was kept the green. Let's look at these side by side. Didn't changing the color of that center square really make this block more interesting by bringing in another color than staying with the old olive? I think it gives the block a lot more interest. Linda, a double box star. Oh, Christmas star. Oh, I cannot wait to hear your suggestions. Oh my goodness, I glanced over the computer because I can get, like, you know, so into just talking and showing you that I forget to glance at comments. But that was the first one I saw. Okay, so just notice how much more interest changing that color is compared to keeping with, you know, green. I got so much green going on in there. It needed something different. Okay, so there's that. What is different about this one? Oh, so what's different about this one compared to this one? See how I used the darker variegated in the center and then went light and then went back to dark for the old olive? Let's see, let's get this in camera here. Okay, there you can see that I went dark, light, dark. This one here is light, dark, light. Now this one here I can go with a lot more than I can this one right here. And notice I put that 4-inch square underneath versus just putting the white down. I love the white square on the cherry cobbler. The contrast is so gorgeous. Cherry cobbler and white. I mean, you cannot go wrong with that. But if you're wanting a border, you can put a border around your block. Okay, let's try to zoom. There we go. Okay, so just showing you the difference things can make by changing some things up. What was different about this? The only thing different about this is I changed the designer series paper that was on the side. I couldn't decide what I wanted on my spine, so I made cards so that I had a little bit of everything. Oh, here's a fun one. So instead of using old olive on this one, I used the shaded spruce frost. And I still put my old olive in there to give that other color. But notice that my little squares here are a white with a print on top. I think I just pulled this in over here. And look at the different look that this has. Now, here's what I want to show you. What if we reverse our colors? What if we put the red on the outside star and this shaded spruce on the inside star? Well, that's what it looks like. So that's what it looks like, changing places with those colors. Isn't that awesome? So don't be afraid to play. And then, oh, that's, I think, the same one, just with a layer. This one here, I think, is kind of like the same. What's different about this one? Not too much. This one pretty much is that same one there. And this one, it's just that I use the snowflake shaded spruce print versus the frost, I think. But you get the idea. So change your colors around and you will change the look of your quilt block. Now I want to show you the Brushed with Beauty cards. So here are my cards with Brushed with Beauty, and I used the banner sayings. I used the sentiments from that. I used some of the white with the gold baker's twine. Here I had this blue leaf just sitting on my desk, and so I used that. But here you get a feel for what the quilt block can look like without being a holiday. This is a really pretty combination too. So I hope you enjoyed today's mystery block. And I cannot wait to go back and read what your suggestions are for what in the world are we going to call this block. And if you would please share your versions over with our group. We have a great community group. It's called Quilt Cards and More. In order to get in, you do need to answer some join questions. I want to make sure that people, there's not people coming in that aren't, you know, I want them to at least be interested and have a genuine interest in what we're doing in our group. Okay, so share your cards there. You're more than welcome to share your cards in the comments of the live. Feel free to do that too, but I really think you would enjoy the group. And that in the group is the only place that I have found that I can put the PDFs. So if you want PDFs, you need to be in the group. So look for a PDF maybe tonight, probably more likely tomorrow, because I want to now add in photos of these cards, and there's a couple of other things that I want to include in that PDF to give you more of a background on the quilt block. So that's all I have for today, you guys. I cannot wait to see what you do. Thank you for being here with me, lasting so long. This did go over just a little bit, but that's okay. It's all good, right? So have a very blessed day, and I cannot wait to see what you do. There's just so many possibilities with this block. Just changing where color goes, adding more pieces to the design. You know, if you see a white space that you feel needs something, put it in there. Give us options. We would love that. Look at all these beautiful stars. Love it. Okay, you guys, I'm going to let you go. Have a very blessed day, and have a very good Thanksgiving. You guys, I'm thinking, I'm toying with a possibility of doing a live, but it's not, we're not going to create anything. I want to show you some birthday cards and things that I've gotten in the mail. So maybe it's just an evening where we can get together and relax and kind of like a show and tell. We're going out of town for Thanksgiving Day. So I just got to see where it all fits in with the weekend. But don't be surprised if you see an announcement. I'll give you a warning that we can hang out in an evening and just chill for a little bit, okay? All right, have a good Thanksgiving, and we'll talk to you later.